Hey YouTube, there we are again with a very brief video with good news. And what is the good news? The best news for me is that I feel that I was right since about 1 year when I told you that the UNECE DCAS regulation was actually irrelevant for Tesla. And the reason is that Tesla has switched from traditional programming to fully neural networks, start to end, cameras and a neural network like the eyes of a human and a brain. And that means the UNECE regulation is far too complex and detailed, a lot of nitty-gritty details, prescribing how the car should behave. And that is exactly what Tesla is not going to do. Instead of that, there are two other alternatives. The first alternative is the new regulation for automated driving systems, or ADS, which is also being prepared by the UNECE organization. But on the other hand, there is a shortcut, which I explained already since a few episodes. And that was the way that Tesla told me they will take. Now I have two sources, two YouTube videos that I will just point you to. You can look at the details of these videos. The first one is by Steven Peters, and the second one is by David, a German channel, Tesla News. I will give you a few fragments of those videos, but it's best that you look at the details in these original videos. I just want to save you time and point you to the videos if you are interested. The good news is finally that there is a very high probability, a good chance, that Tesla will introduce in Europe FSD supervised by May, and if not by May, maybe later in September. And that is going to be explained by as well Steven Peters, as well as by Kees Roelandschap from Mr. Green. Probably most of you know him. But I'm very happy that finally I'm proved to be right, now that other YouTubers are also explaining the same story that I told you about 1 year ago. And that also what I explained about the politics is now finally playing out, and the European Union is taking the lead in pushing this forward. Okay? I'll explain you the details on those two videos. For those interested in how I came to this conclusion, watch my episode 8 of about a year ago, where I reported a meeting in Ghent, which I participated, and where a lot of these details and plans for different manufacturers were disclosed for the European officials, politicians who were present, but also technical people from different manufacturers. Have a look at this episode. Now we go to the first video from Steven Peters, and I'll give you the details in my show notes where you can find this video. And Steven, as probably some of you know, he's really specialized in following up the DCAS regulations of the UNECE organization, and he has a community which informs him, and he reports regularly what's happening. So he also explained now what I have been saying, that Tesla is taking a shortcut, and look at his video if you're interested in those details. The other video is from the German channel, and I will let you watch a part of it. Find the link in my description.
Okay. First, I have always been under the impression that the legislation for like road and traffic signs and vehicles in general is made on a global level. So the United Nations actually came up with a framework designed already in 1958. There was also a 1968 agreement, and that's they call it the Geneva Convention on Road Traffic Safety. 81 member states accept this legislation, and they trickle it down through their nation-state level legislation. In the Netherlands, for instance, to keep it close to home, in 1998, our Wegenverkeerswet, so the road traffic law, comes directly from the UNECE. And on X, there was a lot of confusion, and that's why I decided to start becoming more active on X, because I wanted to get rid of this confusion. Everybody was talking about Europe, European Union, but it was all along the United Nations. Funny thing is that in the design of the legislation, the United States plays a big part, China plays a big part, Japan plays a big part, the Netherlands, but America and the United States don't take this legislation. They have their own. So that's the reason why we've seen it, of course, already active for a long time now in the United States. And Elon Musk put it very good. He said in the United States, everything is legal by default. And in Europe, everything is illegal by default. And that's actually the case. So I've been following and tracking the UNECE. So that's the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. But the funny thing is, they also decide for South Africa and Australia. So the terminology, it's not really covering the topic as good as it should. But I have been tracking that closely. So what we've seen is the rise of ADAS and safety systems in vehicles since I think the 90s already, with ABS, automatic braking systems, or automatic emergency braking systems. It makes perfect sense from a safety feature perspective that's meant to be safe and protect consumers or end users, that it is watertight, foolproof, clear legal boundaries. Once you comply with those legal requirements and safety requirements, then it's safe to roll out to the general public. So that all makes sense. But then we started to see lane keeping assists, or a lane keep assist that also can do lane changes, or also highway exits. And the problem that arose is that all these different system-specific legislations or frameworks started to overlap some gray areas, and this one is restrictive and the other one not so much. So the path for FSD supervised to get released in UNECE member states, to call it correctly, which also include the European Union, became very difficult. So I believe in 2021, all hope and focus was on UN regulation 157, that's for ALKS, automated lane keeping systems. There's also the famous piece of legislation, or infamous piece of legislation, which Mercedes-Benz was so proud to comply with, and they are the world's first level 3 autonomous driving system. Well, it cannot go faster than 60 kph. It needs a lead car, and only in the most optimal scenarios, or like weather conditions, it works, and on certain types of highways. So very limited, and in essence reducing the software to a very cool parking jam assist. Not really much more to it. Marc van Impe, He is a former Tesla employee, and he worked for a foundation called Avere. Avere is in Brussels for the automotive industries and autonomous legislation, and he held a high policy position at Tesla. Together with all the other UNECE member states and the people responsible for the legislation, they came up with a new set of rules and regulations that would allow for a officially level 2 system where the driver is still responsible, but with capabilities exceeding those levels, which is in essence FSD supervised, because FSD supervised or FSD beta back in the day, the design intent of this system is to become fully autonomous by applying vision only and machine learning and AI. So the AI becomes the brain, and AI, I just compare it to a human student driver. You need to teach the student how to drive, and it needs to make mistakes to learn. But the regulation was so restrictive that it couldn't even make a mistake. And we all know from like a historical perspective, by making mistakes, a human learns. So the same logic applies to a self-learning AI system. And of course, also the training data that you put into that system. So they decided to come up with a new framework. It's UN Regulation 171, and again, an acronym, DCAS, Dynamically Controlled Assistant Systems. And that's kind of supposed to be an umbrella legislative framework that's less restrictive and would allow for FSD supervised to be legal in Europe, whilst the driver is still responsible for the behavior of the vehicle. It was all looking very positive in, let's say, May last year, between May and September. And at the last minute of the voting session, I think a week before, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Norway decided that the system is actually too good, and that would cause over-reliance and a loss of driving skill if the system is used on a prolonged basis. So back to square one and essentially degrading FSD supervised again to enhanced autopilot or in functionality. And then I found out something, that the EU, which is a contracting party to the UNECE agreement, but they can also do their own legislation.
Stort de aandelenmarkt in elkaar, dan kun je hier goed aan verdienen. Ja, wist je dat je als trader altijd...
And in January, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, she has announced the action plan of the European Commission. That action plan consists of 5 pillars. Go look it up. But one of those pillars is for the European automotive industry. So they're going to invest big time, and they want to make sure that the European automotive industry, can stay competitive. In essence, that's a very good sign. But I was still under the impression that the European Union doesn't have to do anything with it. But there is a pathway to get FSD supervised in Europe by using an exemption. So the European Commission or the European Union has already a long time ago created this Article 39, that a car manufacturer and every innovative company which wants to introduce an innovative technology, before the whole legal framework is established. So what they can do is they can apply for this exemption for the homologation rules. But they need to provide proof and evidence that the system is at least as safe as a human or better. And the main type approval authority, which has a very strong voice, historically speaking, in the European Commission and also UNECE, is the Dutch type approval authority. It's called RDW, which stands for the Rijksdienst Wegverkeer. similar to German, but not so much. But I think you can understand what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of like in Germany we have the KBA, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's the
it's
same
the equivalent, exactly.
equivalent, exactly.
And like all type approvals for the European Union go through RDW. It's still a black box for me, but the fact that this path is there and that it has been invisible for many is actually very striking to me. And it makes perfect sense because Elon Musk himself said at the shareholder meeting for like the Q4 results that he said that they were aiming for March 2025 to get global regulatory approval. And in November, they published this list of the roadmap. Tesla AI account did that. And they checked all the boxes except for the European regulations. And Elon Musk said, yeah, the Netherlands is our primary regulatory authority, and we need to deliver them with proof. And then they can bring that to the European Union, or actually the European Commission in this sense, to vote on it. That vote will take place in May. And in this month, the Tesla, I think they have already provided RDW with the necessary testing results. So that's a very positive sign. And
but
once
that you're guessing that, or do you have any?
Well,
proof
2 days later, I found proof that in Norway they have actually already filed for this exemption, and the exemption was granted. So they're testing in Norway and gathering the data they need to convince the RDW. And then when you're connecting the dots, Norway is in terms of infrastructure very similar to the Netherlands. And also with a very high penetration of Teslas in general in the EV space there. So it makes perfect sense. And Tesla is doing everything they can to get this regulatory approval out there. So yeah, like if you go back on my X account, you can read the post. I did a very big article about what is Article 39 and what's Article 40, what does it mean, and then what needs to happen to get it on the roads. And then in the days later, I posted some more information about it. At the same time, the United Nations are, I was talking about the DCAS, right? The UN Regulation 171, which would allow FSD supervised. Well, that's going to take a while, I guess. And I think the RDW will approve it prior to the UNECE getting their shit together. But what the UNECE is also doing is they're right now drafting the first proposal, a draft proposal for a global technical regulation, a GTR, a UN GTR, for ADS, for autonomous driving systems.
Scammed by a broker? We can recover your funds within 48 hours. If you've been deceived and lost your money.
Last week, they had a session close to Amsterdam, a full week of meeting. The meeting minutes are published today, I believe, so I still need to dive into it, what transpired there. But that's the piece of legislation that will make give a global framework for all automotive companies trying to develop a system like Tesla FSD has made.
But that's really the big shot then, to really have autonomous cars and not just an ADAS system which can be better than lane keeping on the highway, right?
Yeah. So I thought the whole FSD supervised was off the table because it was so painstakingly slow all the time. But this glimpse of hope that the Economic Commission or Economic Commission is now pushing for this gives me a lot of hope. And still, there is a lot of uncertainty. The political climate isn't really helping. The anti-Elon sentiment and the anti-Tesla sentiment is very big. And over here in Europe, and especially in Germany, the media is painting Musk and Tesla in a very bad picture, or a very bad daylight, actually. So let's hope that politics won't interfere with innovation. But that's the big if in this story. But I think Tesla is in a strong position with the data they gather, and the world has changed significantly in about a year, because FSD beta was first only in the United States and not wide rollout, and then they went wide rollout. Everybody can access FSD. Canada got FSD. Mexico now has FSD. Puerto Rico now has FSD. Even China has FSD. And the fact that they can do it in China is even more impressive, because they have been training it with data from the internet. And I think the data they collect over here, because I've seen so many fleet validation vehicles driving around in Amsterdam with LiDAR on the roof, and I've started to spot them more and more and more. And also what we saw on the job listings on Tesla's website, that they were looking for a lot of ADAS test operators in Norway and in the Netherlands. So yeah, if you take all those dots and you connect them, it's not completely unthinkable that we are going to see FSD supervised this year in Europe, if you ask me.
Yeah, that would be, of course, absolutely fantastic. And you're giving me as well as a lot of hope, because this new article, or newly found article, because I guess it's older, but that we know now that there is this exemption article, and maybe a way to get some hope here into this very, very slow UNECE validation process. Because I was always wondering, Elon and Tesla, they sounded very convinced. They brought this roadmap in September, beginning of September last year. And you said already they checked all the boxes, and they were really, really good on delivering this roadmap. And for me, this FSD topic for Europe, that was always something where I thought, how is that possible? I mean, we know these meetings from the UNECE, they are really not very often. And then there are also different working groups, and it just takes ages. And so I thought, how can they even say that it's Q1 2025? And I think you have here a really good explanation for that. And if that's possible, if that would be possible, you would be exactly in the heart of it in Amsterdam, and looking very much forward to that. Do you? Maybe we can explain, just because we were talking about China, and I don't know if everybody is aware of the situation there with the training data, that Tesla, or the Chinese government, actually doesn't want that video data from the cars is going to the US, and Tesla can do training in the US supercomputing clusters they have. And in the other way around, the US government doesn't want that the supercomputing clusters and the chips go to China. So there's a lose-lose situation in this regard for Tesla. And so they were really forced to train with basically YouTube content from city streets in China. And
that's very impressive.
It's super impressive, because that shows how much they can do with simulation, how much how much they can or where they can go with only this probably not very good data that they have. And the question is, can they use now the YouTube video data from people who use FSD in China and who put it online? That would be interesting to know if they can.
I think they can. Yeah. I think they can, probably. Because it's publicly accessible data. And what's to me very striking is the fact that, okay, it makes some mistakes, but it has never been trained on like the real data, so that they're already achieving this level of functionality and safety with online training, sourcing online training data. That's very cool. But what for me is striking is the foundation model is already good enough.
Yeah.
Because if you graduate your driver's license, you pass your driver's license, you are going to make mistakes as well, even in your own country, where you're used to being in cars with others, seeing how others have driven. Maybe your dad or your mom has taught you how to drive a little bit.